I'm here today to talk to you about something that I find really sad and unfortunate, and that is what is wrong with political science. There are over 100 political science journals. I would ask, how many of you have read even one article from any of these journals? There are nearly 7,000 practicing political scientists in the United States. I would ask how many of you could name even one of these political scientists. The problem runs much deeper than an academic discipline that may be obscure to the general public. Political science essentially tries to model itself on hard science. I encountered this in one of my own areas of expertise, and that is political forecasting, particularly the political forecasting of presidential elections. There I encountered the gatekeepers who would decide what forecasting models are acceptable. They're the gatekeepers of the flagship journal in political science, PS, Political Science and Politics. And indeed, they are fixated on models that they believe replicate the models in hard science. That is, they believe that a political science forecasting model must be, quote, unquote, objective, even though we know pursuit of objectivity is a will o' the wisp. But that's a topic for another discussion. So models must be, quote unquote, objective, replicable, and quantitative. Models that don't fit those requisites are ruled out as outside of what is considered normal science within political science. But here's the rub. Political science is not comparable to hard science like physics or chemistry. Human beings are not planets or molecules. They are not susceptible to the same kind of models that are useful in political science. Rather, the attempt to mirror hard science leads to serious errors within political science. I would point to you two models by very qualified, very esteemed professors that attempt to forecast presidential elections and have produced very serious errors. One is a model by the eminent Professor Dessart, and he was terribly wrong in his predictions of the 2016 presidential election, predicting a clear electoral college victory for Hillary Clinton with 305 electoral college votes, overestimating her real total by about 80. Then there is another eminent professor, Professor Norpoth, who egregiously missed the 2020 election, forecasting an overwhelming landslide for Donald Trump with 362 electoral votes, overestimating the real total by about 130 electoral votes. And these and other errors don't seem to bother the gatekeepers of political forecasting because they are fixated on process and method rather than results, even if their preferred process and methods are flawed conceptually because they're based on a false analogy with hard science, and even though they produce extremely serious errors. So sticking dogmatically to a failed paradigm is what philosophers of science tell us is exactly what yields degenerative, that's their word, degenerative research programs that don't bear a significant relationship with reality, that decline, and that become irrelevant. And we've seen that in political science. For the most part, political scientists are talking only with one another, with this small group, and not having much relevance beyond that. That's very serious for political science. Political science is different than, say, literature or history, which produce interesting, exciting, inspiring, even chilling stories. Political science doesn't have those kinds of stories. And it is fundamentally different than hard science. It doesn't help us to cure disease or combat climate change or build better bridges. No, it's relevant only if it speaks to the broader society and provides insights and messages that improve our society and improve our politics. But if it's sticking to a flawed degenerative model, political science fails in that fundamental mission. What political scientists have failed to recognize with their fixation on the hard science model is that when you're dealing with human beings, the most successful models are not those that mimic hard science, but that combine quantitative indicators and judgmental indicators. Since we're dealing with human beings, we make judgments about them all the time. This broader approach enables you to have a much wider set of indicators and much more accurately forecast elections. That is, much more accurately represent the real world and perhaps rescue political science from degeneration with models that are fixated on process but don't accurately represent the real world. I've developed one such model myself, the Keys to the White House, which actually has been recognized outside of political science by professional forecasters as a model that does in fact accurately depict how presidential elections really work and has a 40-year record of success. The other thing that's so important, I think, about the Keys, whatever you may think of it, the Keys do have a message designed to improve our society and improve our politics. The big message is that it's governance, not campaigning, that counts, which would enable us to break the pernicious cycle of the horse race model with candidates sprinting ahead and falling behind and the pollsters keeping score, who's had a good day, who's had a bad day, which leads to the current trivial, soundbite-driven, negative kind of campaigns that every 4 years the public finds dispirited, but candidates can't seem to break out of. If you follow the message of the Keys, we can have a totally different kind of campaign, focused on vision and substance, which for a winning candidate would help their party get reelected 4 years later, and for losing candidates at least would leave their mark on the country. You know, who remembers beyond a few gaffes anything conventional campaigners have said? Remembers what Hillary Clinton or Mitt Romney or John McCain or John Kerry or Walter Mondale or Bob Dole ever had to say. But even some terribly losing candidates, because they've had vision and a message, have made their mark on the country. Barry Goldwater in 1964 was trounced by Lyndon Johnson, but his forthright articulation of conservative principles influenced generations of conservatives right up until our own time. And the same is true on the left of George McGovern, who was trounced by Richard Nixon in 1972. So, you know, I'm not just trying to attack political science. No, I'm trying to say there are ways in which you can reverse the degeneration of the discipline, broaden your perspectives beyond just trying to model things on hard science, and try to develop an audience beyond just a few other practitioners, and try to develop a message that can improve our society and improve our politics.